Next, from Springfield, we attend a press conference where education administrators and state legislators speak in favor of Senate Bill 1, which would provide more state money for low-income school districts. This runs about 15 minutes.
Thank you, Pastor Johnson and Pastor McJunkins and Celeste and Reginald. I really appreciate them being here today to shine the light on this issue. I'm here today representing the school district's interests as members of the Funding Illinois First Coalition. And I'm here to talk a little bit about rural poverty and how it's affecting districts like mine. There was a press conference in a neighboring district, Taylorville, yesterday, where there's massive cuts being conducted. My counterpart, Dr. Furstenau in Taylorville, has recommended closing 3 buildings, and in his district has cut over 100 staff members in his 7-year tenure in Taylorville. And likewise, I've closed 1 building and cut 20% of my teaching staff, 25% of my administrative staff, 15% of my support staff. And so when people want to talk about, and the governor included, want to talk about, no, they don't want anybody to lose, I'm here today to tell you that we've been losing for the past 5 years under proration. And the issue came to light that we have a broken formula when the state began to equally prorate general state aid 5 years ago. And that is when districts like mine depended upon general state aid, Springfield school system depended upon general state aid, began to be pummeled and discriminated against, because I'm going to use the D word today, as it relates to educational funding and cuts. And so I don't want anybody to lose either. But I like Skittles and rainbows too. And we live in a state that has a finite set of resources, and we have a governor that tells us that we need to continue to look for waste and inefficiencies. And so as a result, it's not pie in the sky anymore as it relates to educational funding. There's a finite set of resources that needs to be looked at as it relates to a formula that's antiquated and no longer reflects the demographics of this state. And so what we need to see happen is Senate Bill 1, and the reason we need to see that happen is because it's an issue of equity. I almost tongue-in-cheek had a button prepared today that says, we're number 50, and was going to lead a chant. We're number 50 in terms of inadequacy and inequity of funding. That's nothing to be proud of in this state. And it's an obvious, need for a solution. We got to fix the equity issue. I have many of my colleagues that are not a part of the coalition talking about adequacy. I love that term. But the reality is, if we don't fix equity first, adequacy is never going to be there. And the problem is, if we continue to dump money that we don't have into the existing formula, it's only going to do this. It's going to widen the divide in this state. So that's not the solution. I know the governor doesn't want losers. I get that in terms of education. But I'm telling you, as I said in this room a year ago, welcome to my world. I've been losing for 5 straight years, and so have my colleagues that are a part of the coalition. That needs to stop. We have a solution today. We have a champion behind us that has championed this issue and was with my fellow superintendents over 2 years ago before he built the EFACT Commission, a bipartisan senatorial commission that went all over this state, stopped in 8 different places, heard from everybody, and created the formula that we have today, that he continues to tweak, trying to make it work for everybody. But the reality is, when there's a finite set of resources, there's going to be winners and losers. And I don't like that any more than anyone else. But that's what we have. That's the landscape in this state. And I'm here to say that Senate Bill 1 is the solution to that. Thank you.
from our legislative support is Representative Sue Scherer would come, and then Senator Andy Manar, who's the sponsor of Senate Bill 1, and after he's done, he'll have remarks and question and answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. Very serious topic we're here to talk about today, very serious. It's the whole future of the state of Illinois, basically. Because as I spoke to the governor first time I met him, I said, you know, we have a lot in common. We both want what's best for the state of Illinois. But we're only as strong as our weakest link. And we both have different ideas of how we should get there. So I'm proud to stand here beside Senator Manar in strong support for Senate Bill 1. Stronger support than any bill that I have ever supported in my life. Because there are so many injustices right now. I taught for 33 years. I saw it firsthand. I know what it's like to try to teach a classroom without textbooks because I had to do it. I know what it's like to try to teach without paper because I had to do it. It was May and we were out for the year. I know what it's like to teach without a pencil sharpener because when the pencil sharpener breaks, if we don't have another cutter to put in there, there's no money to go buy a new one. So you just wait till next year's budget. Now, there's no justice there. There's nothing right about that. We should be hanging our heads in shame. How dare a state be so pathetic in the way that they fund their students? They'll walk down the aisles and we'll say, this is our greatest resource. This is our future. And we care about you so much that you get the crumbs that are left over after we fund everything else in the whole state, and then some. It's unconscionable what has been going on. I have been fighting this fight since the 80s. And we thought in 97 things got better. We thought when we threw in lottery funding it would get better. And all that meant was another pot of gold for somebody to take money out of and give to someone else other than our students. I'm seeing a pattern here. If you're vulnerable, watch out. If you're a child, watch out. If you're in a depressed area, watch out. If you're in poverty, watch out. Because that's who we're going after, brothers and sisters. That's who we're going after. And it's got to stop. Because this is our future. These kids only have one chance at first grade. When I taught first grade, that's what I told them. You get one chance. Make it the best. When my kids went to high school and their school closed and they went to a different, I said, you can't wait 2 years to get over this. You have 2 years of high school left. Make it your best. You don't get another chance. Our kids deserve to go to U of I just like everybody north of I-80. And I will fight to the end to make this happen. It's unacceptable, absolutely. And they only get one chance at this. But if we wait 4 years to get it straight, their whole core foundation is gone. Their whole high school is gone. We can't wait. The sense of urgency is right now, and I am right behind Senator Manar to do everything I can to make it happen. And I urge my fellow members in the House to just vote yes. The right thing isn't always the easy thing to do.
All right. Is it afternoon? Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Pastor Johnson, thank you for bringing us together here on behalf of the Faith Coalition, and Pastor McJunkins, your work with Gamaliel of Illinois, to the educators and parents, thanks for articulating the issue that we're here to talk about. I'm going to be brief because you've all heard me say this, and I'll make a note that we're going to keep saying it till reform is achieved in this state. This effort will not end until reform is achieved in this state. I'm going to start here. I'm going to start right here. I'm going to hold it because I don't want anybody to get away with not reading this chart. This chart simply says that if you are a young African American or Latino student in Illinois, and you go to a school district that serves a majority minority student population, you will, on average, have $2,000 less invested in your education than your counterparts. This is a fact. We own this in Illinois. This is a tragedy on every level. Think about $2,000 a year for 12 years. Think of what that does, and more importantly, what that doesn't do. Any plan presented to the legislature that doesn't address this is a failure. It is an absolute failure. We're not going to turn Illinois around until this is solved. There is no turnaround agenda that will change lives in a meaningful way if this is not solved in Illinois. Illinois has the most regressive system. Illinois has the most regressive system. We have documented this and provided evidence of this for nearly 2 years. Every metric, every measurement, every point of view, every angle from scholarly work to anything that has been presented to the General Assembly shows that we are the worst in the nation when it comes to the gap between the haves and the have-nots. We're here today to remind, I think, our colleagues, Sue, and remind the community, the statewide community, that this isn't going to change by default. The change to this isn't going to fall out of the sky one day and present itself to the legislature. The change is going to have to come because people demand it and because they don't want the status quo to continue. Because as Dr. Lett articulated, simply pouring money into a system that produces this result is only going to make this result worse. So it's a little trickier than just simply saying spending more money. We have to get into the directions in the law on how money is distributed to schools. As has been stated multiple times by legislators from all over the state, from both parties, that's a difficult task. That's a difficult task, and we understand that. We all understand that. But we also understand that our kids are important. And we also understand that depending on where you live in the state today, your child is either valued more or less than another child. And that's reality in the state today. And I want to end where I began. That chart that I held up earlier is just a, we own it. We own that in Illinois. No one should be proud of that. This should set everybody into motion to try to find a solution to that. People say to me all the time, well, we're gonna lose a little bit of money in our school district, despite the fact we have a low tax rate and spend above what is adequate. We may lose a little money, so we're going to be opposed to Senate Bill 1. And we've tried to articulate that, you're losing money here too. It just may not be coming from your school district budget. It's coming from your taxes. It ends up at the Department of Corrections. It ends up in the Medicaid program. It ends up in small communities and urban communities that are seeing a growth in poverty. And this doesn't just, you don't just apply this to African American young people across the state. There's poverty gripping small towns in downstate Illinois to the likes we've never seen before. But our state aid formula for schools doesn't recognize that. It doesn't even begin to recognize that. So until we make a change, all of these things are going to continue to grow. These challenges are going to continue to present themselves. The costs associated with those challenges will continue to make their way into the state budget every single year until we deal with this issue once and for all. And if we don't deal with this, and if we don't deal with equity, any plan presented to the legislature is a failure. Thank you.